The name's Craig. James Craig. Ah, that's not right. The name's Bond. Daniel Bond. Oh, that's... The name's Daniel. James Oh! In No Time to Die, we see James Bond has already retired with his wife Madeline Swan, but when a message from his past comes chasing him, he finds himself going against this mysterious villain called Safin. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Craig's James Bond films. I love Casino Royale, but Quantum of Solace was fine. Skyfall is okay and Spectre is just not good. I have actually reviewed all of those films. Check out this playlist right here so that you can know my in-depth thoughts about each of those films. But I was excited for No Time to Die because the trailers did look promising and it felt like a throwback to the older Bond films. And I'm glad to say that this film actually turned out to be good. I had a lot of fun watching No Time to Die, and this might be my favorite James Bond film since Casino Royale. So let's talk about what works in the film. First and foremost, No Time to Die feels more like a James Bond film. It is consciously a throwback to the older James Bond films, especially from the Sean Connery era, because you have a villain who lives on an island, the entirety of the climax takes place there, and then you have Bond going on all of these missions, and Q provides him with gadgets. There is an EMP watch, and there is also a henchman who has a bionic eye, literally. So all of that are definitely elements of a James Bond film which were quite missing in the previous 3 Bond films, and I'm glad that they decided to bring back the feel of the older Bond films and modernize the story enough that it feels like its own thing. And the film also has incredible cinematography. I've always praised the cinematography in the Daniel Craig James Bond films, and this film continues that tradition to have some of the most beautiful looking shots in the entirety of the James Bond history, and the action is just amazing. There are a lot of action sequences that are memorable from this film, and most of the action is directed in a way that will put you on the edge of your seat. For the most part, at least, most of the action is definitely very, very well done. And the acting is quite good. Daniel Craig, Lee Seydoux, and even the new edition of 007, Lashana Lynch, she was really good in the movie. I thought the addition of a 007 and the back and forth between Bond and the new 007, that was really funny, and that really elevated a few sequences for me. I also liked that Bond's character felt more like that of James Bond. I mean, in the previous 3 films, they gave him a lot of emotional baggage, and at times I couldn't connect with the character of James Bond as much as I wanted to. But in this film, I found the character of James Bond to be more appealing and a little bit more of the classic character that we know and love. This film definitely was quite heavy-handed on the emotion. I did feel like a lot of the scenes came off as melodramatic and sappy and soap opera-like. Sometimes it does get a bit too melodramatic. And also the villain in this movie, Safin, I thought the actor did a good enough job, but the character of that villain was so weirdly written. I mean, the film literally opens up to show that the villain's main motivation is revenge. I'm not going to spoil anything, but that's the essential way the film opens up with. And as we move on, we feel like he's getting closer to what he wants to do, but then he doesn't do it. He doesn't take revenge. He does something else. I had no clue what his motivation was. I mean, he was planning to destroy the world and was trying to take revenge, and he doesn't... I don't know. I absolutely have no clue what the villain's motivations were. I mean, he feels more like a villainous presence at moments, but he didn't impress me as a James Bond villain. He didn't really feel like a threat in most of the sequences, and he rarely even appears in the film. I mean, he's completely missing in the first 2 hours of the film. Maybe there's one scene where he appears, but totally his screen presence is towards the end of the film and doesn't really bring a lot in terms of that. And also the film clocks around 2 hours 43 minutes, which is definitely a bit long. I could see a few sequences being chopped out of the runtime. They definitely wanted to make this one an epic feeling James Bond film, hence the length and all of that. Sometimes it did feel like the story was dragging on. One of the highlights of the entire film is the scene in Cuba, where you also have this agent called Paloma, played excellently by Ana de Armas. The entire action in the Cuba sequence is extremely well handled, and all of the espionage elements in that were extremely well handled. I loved that scene, that really stood out, but there wasn't particularly a scene after or before that could really stand up to how good the scene was and how good Paloma's presence was in that scene. So you often find yourself slightly underwhelmed because it didn't quite reach the level of how good the scene was. It's not particularly a bad thing because the rest of the movie is fine, it's still enjoyable and fun, but it kind of peaks early on and leaves the other moments in the film to be slightly underwhelming. Though this film is my favorite James Bond film since Casino Royale, it doesn't even come close to being as good as Casino Royale was because of all of the reasons I've mentioned and also because of the final 10 minutes of the film. They were trying to do something different, something that has never been done in the history of James Bond before, but it was executed in a way that felt rushed. I mean, you already have a 2 hours 43 minute film. It doesn't matter if you increase the runtime a little bit more. I mean, it just felt very rushed. I mean, the movie was going at a good pace. The climax was unfolding well enough, and then it was like, whoosh, and the movie's done. Like, wait, did I miss something? It's not, and they don't even close off a few subplots in a way that was satisfying just so that they could do something else. It's almost like the film is Daniel Craig's last film as James Bond, and so they had to have that ending, the ending that they went with, and it doesn't really impact you all that much. Other than the score by Hans Zimmer, which is excellent in the entire film, the score is absolutely amazing. There is nothing that really impacts you the way it should have in the end. I really tried to look back at the film, tried to process the ending a little bit more. You know, it's not in regards of the story, it's just the direction that they took the character of James Bond that just didn't sit well with me. I took some time to think about it, but it still doesn't sit well with me. It felt extremely rushed and it lacked the impact completely. Also, where the film falters is when it is trying to cover up the subplots from the previous films. And these Daniel Craig films are obsessed with just connecting everything, and so No Time to Die definitely has a task to close out all of the loops that were left open in the previous films. A few of them were closed in a way that I was satisfied with, but a few plot points, the way they closed them up, it just felt rushed and it didn't feel satisfying. I think the movie should have been about Bond coming out of retirement and going against Spectre. That's all the movie should have been, because the inclusion of Safin didn't particularly do anything to the film because he wasn't particularly a threatening villain. His motives didn't make sense. Maybe the entire film was about Bond just going against Spectre. It probably would have been more satisfying. But despite all of those flaws, I really did enjoy No Time to Die. It's by no means a great film, but I think it's definitely a good action spy film that you can definitely watch and be entertained with. Not everything works, but it ends up being a good James Bond film and my favorite one since Casino Royale. With all of that said, I'm going to give the new James Bond film No Time to Die a B+. On the entertainment scale, I will give it an 8 out of 10 because I did enjoy myself quite a bit. Those are my thoughts on No Time to Die. Comment down below what you guys thought about this. Also, don't forget to check out this playlist that will appear on the screen, which has my reviews for all of the previous Daniel Craig James Bond films. I've gone in depth and talked about each and every one of them, what I like about them, what I don't like about them, so definitely do check them out. Consider giving this video a like if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any new content. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again.